And we're back.
And we're back. Hi, Yvonne. How are you?
Hi, Emmy. I'm great. How are you doing?
Very good this morning.
Yes, fantastic. I love it. Every time we play that intro music, I just sit in my chair dancing. What is that?
Me too. It's like, that's the whole point, no?
Should time, yeah.
For anyone out there that thinks why we are in such a good mood every time we start.
Yes. Setting ourselves up for goodness. That's what we do. That's what it's all about. And this week we are talking about the hyperachiever and really looking at how the I am alone plays out for the hyperachiever. And I think some people think, oh, how does that work? You know, if you're a hyperachiever, you're the center, you're probably potentially the center of attention. Why would you feel alone in any shape or form? And actually, there are quite a few ways in which it does actually play out. And I don't know if you want to kick off, Evie, with your thoughts on this whole thing about how the hyperachiever amplifies I am not alone.
Well, yeah, for sure. Considering, you know, some of my higher saboteurs are, I mean, it is hyperachiever. Like the one thing that's very prevalent in a, you know, like a hyperachiever that would eventually manifest as I am alone is like that they are not very good in asking for help. And you know, when you don't ask for help, it's it can be like a double-bladed sword, or like a double-edged sword, because you know, you don't ask for help because you want to do things your way, and you know that they're going to be done. But on the other hand, you are like you know, really not having enough time to do all the things by yourself, and you are feeling that nobody's helping, nobody's there, nobody understands, and you're running around like crazy, and why nobody listens, and blah 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 blah. So it becomes a big, you know, like a chatter in your head, and I think that is one of the main things that get hyperachievers feel that they are alone. And of course, you know, there are many other things, but I think not asking for help, showing up as like you know, the person that can handle everything, without that really being the case, can create a big disconnect with who you are and how you show up.
Absolutely. And even if you can do it, you're probably under so much stress, internal stress from doing it all. And that in and of itself brings another set of issues and challenges. I think one of the things for me when I think about the hyperachiever and that sense of I am alone comes from how they prioritize. So, you know, again, hyperachiever was in my top 3, so I'm as much talking about myself as anybody else, is the ability to get so focused on the achievement elements of what you're doing. Must do, got to get this done, achieve, getting external validation. That becomes so important that actually the connections, the relationship building part, the connecting with people becomes less important. And so that in and of itself pulls you away from being connected to people, from building more meaningful relationships with people, because actually it's more important for me to get this stuff done than to do that, than to have those conversations. And part of that also for me runs into the unwillingness to be vulnerable. So, and I think this almost connects this prioritizing achievement with what you were saying about not asking for support, is that, I must be seen as someone who can do it all, who's got this under wraps, I can get all this done, and I haven't got time to be vulnerable. That's just for those people who, have got nothing else to do. I'm too strong for that. So I think there are all these kind of voices that can come into play. And ultimately, they kind of put you in a bit of a stronghold. And the more you separate yourself from people in the pursuit of the achievement, the more uncomfortable it becomes to start building those connections with people, and also and almost expecting them to just appreciate all the brilliant things that you do without really having any understanding of who you are.
Yeah,
For me, there's just something about that.
that does, even saying this out loud is like quite weird, because it's the expectation of getting what you want without asking for it, the expectation of being perceived by others without showing your true self the way you want. So there is a huge gap as to, like, who you really are, who you appear to be, and how you show up in the different spaces that you operate. And of course, that makes you feel alone, and it is very hard to overcome this, because usually when we are I don't know, I mean, if you have felt that one, but like when you are in a project, for example, and you have been like really going on and on and on, and you have really set the standard in such a way that everybody is sort of like, struggling behind you when you are like, no, 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 do it, do it, do it, do it, whatever. The moment you start crashing, um, everything falls apart. But you need to hold that up. You can't really let it go,
Yeah,
because nobody else knows what you're going through. So I think it is at that stage where you really feel that you are alone. But it's all your own doing in a way, because if you had the opportunity to explain what you're doing and to share your vulnerability, as you said, and to also utilize the talent that you have around you, that would make things so much easier. You would never need to feel alone, show up alone, or like have all this frustration.
absolutely.
It's horrid.
Absolutely. And the other thing is when you're operating from that state and that level of achievement, and as you said, it becomes a demand on people around you. It's like you need to step up, and you need to kind of get to where I am type pressure. Even if you're not verbalizing it, it's what you're demonstrating, it's what you're showing. It's really difficult to build meaningful relationships out of that. They tend to be much more superficial, much more surfacey, where you can stand next to me and match me if you work as hard as I do, and if you achieve the sorts of things that I achieve. And that may not be the message that you want to put out there, but that is what may be emanating from you, from the way that you are showing up. And of course, what does that do? That just pushes people away, because people are just like, well, I don't want to be around that. And people start making their assumptions about who you are that could be a million miles away from who you truly are. So the loneliness can then come from what people are thinking of you and are stepping away or back from you. So now there is this gap between you and others. That again has just been created from the way that people are experiencing you. So, one, how we experience ourselves, two, how other people experience us, and three, the situations that we find ourselves in. All of those things, I think, come into play.
For sure, for sure. And that is the thing. It's like, again, I'll say it. It is a good thing that, it is up to us at the end of the day. It is a good thing that we create this type of situations, because that means we are in control to change them as well. We have the control. Okay, we might not be in control all the time, but I mean, we have the control. We have the opportunity to show up differently. We have the opportunity to choose to do something different and see how that plays out. And then that's the critical bit that we all need to know. It's one thing to beat yourself up because you show up a specific way, and it's another thing to know that, okay, fine, that's how I generally show up, but what can I do? How can I change it? How can I show up in a different way, so people can see who I truly am, so people can like really get me. And I think at that stage, when people start getting you, you also attract the right people for you, and it makes things again flow with ease. And so if you are a hyperachiever and you want to get things and make things happen, probably you're going to attract at that stage, if you like dig deeper to your achiever and not let your hyperachiever override that.
Yes.
Find the right people and make the things that you want happen without so much pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there is something about, as a hyperachiever, how am I defining success? Is success all about, this accumulation of certificates, or about the next career move up, 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 up? What does success really mean? And listen, if it is the next step up, 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 if it is another stack of certificates that show that you've learned all this stuff, what makes that truly important? Where are you kind of really going with that, so that you're not caught in a cycle of doing all this stuff just for the sake of, or just because you can, or because you feel people expect it of you, and all of those things that tend to be driving it, because most of those things are fear driven. Well, if somebody doesn't see 200 letters after my name, then they're not going to take me seriously. So, I need to do this other thing. I need to do this other thing, which is very different from somebody saying, I found this career or this thing and I absolutely love it, and I want to learn it from the inside out because it's what makes me tick, and I want to be able to share that with people. That's a very different approach to achieving than somebody who is literally, I have to do this because I have to be seen as, or I want people to take me seriously, or all of those other messages that can drive you from achiever to hyperachiever, right?
For sure. And the thing is that when you are driving everything from that perspective, from like, okay, let me see how can I achieve what I want to achieve, but like in an ease and flow, rather than just being pushed, you start realizing as well what is important to you, as opposed to what is like what you think or you thought it was important, because it's part of conditioning. And I sort of like, came to me when you were talking about like going up and up and up, or achieving and achieving, because even achieving and keep achieving the next thing and the next thing, it has to do with validation. It has to do with like being seen. It has to do with not feeling alone. So you are constantly reaching for something else, believing that that is going to solve the problem, but you're not really understanding what causes that problem. So you are like sort of fighting the effect, I think, rather than the cause. And that is endless, and it's exhausting, and you haven't got a solution. So
Indeed.
it's like this.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Mhm.
And it is a brutal way of treating yourself. And and of course, not done because you intend to, but this is just that loop that you're caught on. And I think that this is where it's important to really take a pause and understand the importance of vulnerability in all of this. Is that if I can be open enough to say, yeah, I'm achieving all this stuff and I am stepping up and I am getting these things done. However, I don't want to just show people all the successes that I've had from it. I need to let them know about all of the harder stuff too, because that's the reality. People, and I think that that's what draws people to you, when people see that, this person has become successful or is really successful or is really great at this thing, but they've also been generous enough to share what it's taken and what that has looked like, because that really helps other people understand that it's not impossible for me to do these things. However, I need to be aware that it's not just this smooth sailing upward climb either. There's this other stuff that happens. And I think that level of vulnerability really helps people to connect with you. So for me, that whole thing about, if you want to stop feeling alone, is you need to create space where people can feel connected to you. People will feel more connected to you when they see more of who you are and not just this one part that you're kind of almost getting them to focus on. Let them see that much more. I'm hand up. I will, if you want to know all the awful things that have happened in my life, no problem. Drop me a DM, I'll let you know. But there's also many more wonderful things. There's many more fantastic opportunities, but they've been blended. There is no one steady climb. Steps forward, steps back, steps up, down, all over the place. And I think that we need to have that sense of, as anyone who kind of recognizes the hyper achiever within themselves, to say, actually, where am I covering up where the things that I don't want people to see, because I just want them to see the shiny thing? What is that? And actually, what parts of that do I feel comfortable sharing, so that I am seen as a human being, because I am a human being and I do make mistakes and things do go wrong. And allowing yourself, cutting yourself some slack in that moment, being able to be kind to yourself, to say, do you know what? I know I can achieve the things that I want to. I also understand that sometimes I need support. And it's not
Absolutely.
just about me driving myself into an early grave, trying to do it all myself.
And when it comes to careers, for example, I see with my clients, because there is a difference between personal development and career development, or professional development. And I have this question that comes up quite often. It's like, it has taken me so much to be who I am. And then there is this, like, okay, the be who I am, is that like the personal or the professional? And there isn't like a clear cut between the two. However, the personal development takes way longer to get the spaces you want to be than the professional. And it might be holding back the professional, or the other way around. And people need to understand that these are two very different things, and you should not let the one hold back the other. And why did I say that now? It's because it also makes you want to be invisible, because you don't feel ready, or you don't feel that you can express who you are within your professional environment, because that might jeopardize the professional environment, or the other way around. And it keeps you quite alone and confused when you are in that medium stage. Yeah. But the personal development, and I've explained that, and I explained that, is an ongoing thing. It will never change. It will never not change. It will never come to an end. Really. Yes. Well, only when we end, probably. Probably, I don't even know that, but the thing is that it doesn't, there is no end to that. The professional development is a completely different thing, and people need to understand that and let that flow as it it comes and as it is wanted by them at the end of the day. Because it does create a huge disconnect, and it does create not a disconnect only from self but like from everyone else, because you can't be or you feel you cannot be authentic if you haven't figured everything out with regards to your personal development. And it is sad, when you
Yeah,
hear that.
absolutely. And so there's a part of me that feels that that's why personal development is such an integral part of the journey that you are on, because the more you connect with yourself and who you truly are, not who the world is telling you you should be or must be, and this thing that you must fit into, the more you can connect with that. Actually, for me personally, the more I've understood myself and what's important to me, the easier it has been in my professional development, because it's allowed me to say, stop doing all these million things just because you're ticking all these boxes from out there. It's like now I'm just focusing on the things that truly matter, that truly resonate, and where I feel the best of me comes up and comes out, and it's just a completely different place from, I've got to be professional and I must have all these certificates and all these awards and I must be seen as somebody. There is definitely, as you said, that can just cause such a big disconnect. So I think there is definitely something about the personal development element that is about connecting with yourself and understanding yourself and how you truly want to be, and then how that impacts your professional development in a really positive way. But I think we always have to say we live in a society that kind of is always driving people to drive. You must do more, you must have more, you must go more, you must go faster. There's all this constant that is literally constantly pushing people, and that for me is where personal development is about. Oh no, stop, pause, and really start to come back to the relationship with yourself, and really feel what is pulling you, not what's pushing you, so that there is that authenticity, there is that beautiful connection, and that in and of itself, you were saying earlier, draws a different set of opportunities and people and things into your circle.
And the other thing is that, I have found, because we are all surrounded by various types of people and that they are in so many different areas of their journeys, sometimes, especially for the hyperachievers, it feels like really important for them to show up as like the height of the group, or like at the top of the group, but you
Yes.
can't be at the top of every single group you're in. And maybe that is the reason why, like communities like the ones that we're building are built, because you need to be in spaces where people are like-minded, and you can like be authentic, and you can be vulnerable, and you can be who you are, without being apologetic about it, with like a whole the whole sense of like it is okay for you to be you, whatever that is. um
Yeah.
so and that stops that feeling of loneliness, because also that can cause a lot of that sense of like, nobody really gets me, I am alone.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I always think there's two things with communities. So I think there's the communities that are built to support you, which is where you'll find the like-minded people, where you feel comfortable enough to be able to be open and honest and really kind of let it all out, and yeah, this is, this is what people see, but this is what's really going on over here, and that you feel comfortable because you know that those people have got you, they're holding you, there for you. And then I think there's also communities where, there are people from many different thought perspectives, many different, where you can have really kind of broad conversations and connections in a very different way. So it's like there's two different types of communities, and it's, what do you need? What do you need right now? Do you need that community where you're supported, where you're held, where you can actually fully breathe and feel fully yourself, or do you need, and maybe it's not an or, because maybe it's an and a community that is filled with different people with different perspectives, where there's growth to be made also, so that it's not, I don't think it's an either or. I think sometimes we generally need a combination of the two, but the one that's generally missing is the one where people feel truly at home, to be fully who they are, and to come with all of their challenges.
True. I mean, it is easier to be part of a community, and that it's just, I don't know, the community of debate, let's say that, or where, because that's what we're most used to, isn't it, as well, in our environments. We're most used to be in places where we are challenged, and where we feel that growth through challenge is the only growth, but there isn't really. I mean, there are different types of growth, and I think that you very correctly said there, Yvonne, you need to have both to be able to have that balance.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to just that lens of I am alone, is that when you find a community that will hold you, that will support you, where you can offload, if you like, or just listen or be heard, whatever the terminology is, it just changes everything. Because it's like, finally, even if I have to go into my work tomorrow, and I'm still going to do the polished and the blah blah and the whatever, at least I know I have a place I can come to where I can just kind of let it all be. And the more I can do that, the more I can begin to make the changes necessary for me to show up differently in that other environment. Because you have to do the work on yourself for that to happen, right? That you have to do the work on yourself, and it's much easier to do that work on yourself when you're in a space of safety and support and encouragement and being uplifted.
It replenishes you. Right? That's what it is, I suppose. It just
Absolutely.
replenishes your energy and stuff, and also it's nice to be accepted as you are, and also be heard, and see that there are other people that are going through similar struggles, and hear how they are overcoming them, because that's the whole point. Maybe that's the reason why being vulnerable, it has much more impact than not to the general public, I want to say. But because people can resonate with the struggle, can resonate with the challenge, and it is welcoming, because as a person that is having the same challenge or similar challenges, you feel that, okay, there is a light in the tunnel. Somebody has had the same and overcame it, and that is what I think this type of communities like ours is all about.
Definitely. And again, you and I both, having had the hyperachiever play its role along the way, kind of know that it's almost, I want to say, it's key to be able to find that space where you can drop the hyper. You can drop the hyper. You're still the achiever. That's fantastic, but drop the hyper. And by dropping the hyper, it allows you to build more meaningful relationships with yourself as well as with others. And that for me is where you stop being alone. You come back to self, you come back to the importance of relationships, and that just changes those habits that have been almost causing you to close down in that hyper way. Because there's nothing wrong with being an achiever all day
No,
long.
definitely not.
Fantastic.
100%.
Oh, 100%. But hyperachiever is just like next level, taking it too far. And with that just comes some things that are not healthy for you. That closing down of self, which is not healthy for you. And you don't have to. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to be alone. You need to, find your people, find your space. And much like the community that we are building, Permission to Thrive, it's about finding that place where you can really start to explore what's truly important to you with people who are doing the same and who will support you on the journey. Because that support for me is crucial. And whilst we may sometimes feel like we want to do it all on our own, I know best, I would guarantee that the true wins come when you find the right community and you have that level of support. You have those people who've got your back.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that, like, I'm alone, like, I am not enough. They are both barriers to your growth anyway.
Yes.
So no matter how they show up in your life, they are like blockers. They are things that you need to break through before you can, like, really show up the way you are.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, for that true brilliance to shine, we need to kind of let those things go. So, that's kind of the stuff that we're going to be offering and that we're going to be supporting the brilliant women that come into Permission to Thrive on. So if you recognize yourself as somebody who's potentially hyperachiever, may have been the thing that's been pushing you to do the stuff you do, and you have experienced the pressure of that, we're offering you an opportunity to release some of that pressure, actually to release that pressure, not some of it, to release that pressure and to really step into yourself and to be brilliant and to be the achiever that you are without the burnout, without the cutting yourself off from others, having meaningful relationships and still doing the great stuff that you are here to do.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's it. I think that says it.
We'll rely onto that. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. For those who have, if you're watching it on replay, as always, we just encourage you, leave any comments, any thoughts. We encourage that. If you want to find out more about Permission to Thrive, there are QR codes at the end of the video. Click on either one to find out a little bit more, and also to take it a step further to book a call with either myself or Evie, and just to find out whether this community is the right community for you, for where you are right now.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you next Thursday.
Thank you. And thank you, Evie. Take care.
Thank you, Yvonne. Bye.